Hey guys, welcome back to Tower Fantasy. It is Shiro time. So, few things. We're going to go through her skills, her combos, her rotation, her play style, her star upgrades, all the general stuff, but I also want to look at her changes from the CN version. Shiro's got a bad rap coming into Global because of the way she was on the CN version. Now, I'm not saying she's god tier, everyone should build her. I haven't done enough testing of every other unit to know that, but all I want to say is she is better on Global than she was on CN. Couple reasons for that. We've got a bunch of Global units or weapons getting nerfs from the CN, things like Tsubasa, Samir, Nemesis, Frigg, there's others as well, but they're getting nerfs, whereas we actually on the Shiro got buffs to all of her base multipliers for her abilities. So, like I said, I haven't tested everything. I don't know comparisons against every character because I don't have everything maxed on an account where I can do testing. But just know that she is better on Global than she was on CN, and she does have some very useful, abilities in her kit, especially on her star ups, that can really help a team out as well. And if you want to play her like I do, go ahead. Like I said, she's fun. The game's all about having fun, so hopefully I can demonstrate the playstyle and see if you guys enjoy it. But I will continue testing Shiro versus other things as my accounts progress and keep you guys updated. But all I want to say is she's definitely better in Global than she was in CN. So that's the first disclaimer bit out of the way. Let's get into her basic abilities. So her basic attack is just going to be spamming some chakrams. You throw them out and then they come back. Now, they do damage on the way out and the way back. Their multiplier is dog shit, so you don't really want to use this ability. The next ability is the one that you will be using most often. It's when you tap once and then hold. Now, she will throw 2 chakrams, but all you have to do is tap once and then hold on the second click and it will work. So we go tap, hold, and you can see the third throw is going to throw 5 chakrams. And if you get stuck with Shiro in, because normally you're going to be swapping in and out, but if you do get stuck with her in, you want to be close to an enemy. So she may look like a ranged character, which she can be used tech at range, if enemies are using close range AoEs and you just got to stand back. But she mainly wants to be played as a melee because you want to be close for her skill, but also for this ability, if you're closer, you will hit them with the 5 chakram and deal more damage. So that is the basic ability. If you get stuck with her in, you want to be spamming. Next up, we have her jump skill. Once again, like her basic attack, you aren't going to use this too much. The next one we have is her jump and hold ability, where you're going to jump, you're going to hold, she's going to shoot one across, and it'll hit an enemy and explode and deal some AoE damage with a little bit of control. Now, this one's not horrible. Tech situations, I will use it, but mainly, like I said, you want to be close and using this one. If you're at a bit of range, sometimes you can just do this one and get some AoE damage in there. The next ability, which is a very key ability in her kit, is going to be her dodge attack. So if we just do it here, it doesn't look like anything different. Whoop, I actually had someone targeted. So let's go show you. So basically what happens is when you throw this one, it's going to hit an enemy, and if it hits them, it's going to split into 3 chakrams. So let's do it on this guy. You can see it splits into 3. Now, the key with this ability is that when she uses her skill, which I'll show you in a sec, those 3 that it splits into will bounce around in the ring and keep dealing damage up to 5 times. So what we'll show you next is going to be her skill, so you can see how it functions. So we're going to just group some guys up and we'll show you her skill, because her skill is very important in the burst phase in the way you use her, which we'll talk about more in a second. But I just want to demonstrate this, demonstrate her skill. So when you put it out, it's going to put a ring and have 5 chakram that bounce around. But like I said, if you dodge skill and hit an enemy in that ring, the chakram that's split out of the 3 chakram that split will bounce around. So you can end up doing the ring, and then you can get 9 more chakram with 3 dodge attacks bouncing around. So here's a better clip that demonstrates it, just because those little guys were dying too quickly and we couldn't really show it properly. Now, keep in mind, each chakram only bounces 5 times. So it bounces off the wall 5 times, but it will go through all the enemies on the way. So you can end up with a lot more chakram in there by using those dodge attacks to hit the enemies, split, and keep bouncing around. So that is the basic use of her skill. Now, also on her skill, when you use it, is going to drag enemies in and also slow them by 30%. It is on a 45-second cooldown. Okay, so when got fully charged, now I want to show you her discharge ability. So this one's going to stun a target and enemies around it. Then once every second for 10 seconds, it's going to bring down 3 lightning bolts. So even if there's 10 enemies in the range, it's only going to hit 3 of them. And these lightning bolts are going to have a chance to stun the enemies every time they strike. Now, it doesn't have a crazy multiplier, and because it's limited to 3, I don't often use it too much, but it can be used clutch for some, some stun and some control if you need to use it. But let's go ahead and take a look. So we'll just get on one of these guys, and here we go. And you'll see that it's gonna stun them, and then those lightning bolts are gonna deal damage, but they're gonna be in range, because you can see once they leave the range of it, it's gonna stop dealing that damage. And like I said, it lasts 10 seconds. Okay, so after that, let's take a look at her basic kit, her stars, and everything like that. So obviously, damage dealing, physical. Shatter is 11.4. That's because I have a 1-star. At base, it's 10. Charges 6. Low charge. However, when she has all the things running in her burst phase, she can charge a fair bit, even with the low charge rating. Now, she does get extra crit scaling, which is really nice, better than something like King that gets the resistance scaling. Now, as for her star ups, the first 2 that I want to mention are her 2 and 4-star, because her 4-star is a massive pity to me. When we look at something like King, at 2 he gets HP, and at 4 he gets 32, which is much better than the 16 attack on 2 and then 32 HP on 4-star. So that's a pity. What you ideally want is something like Samir from a damage dealer, which is attack and attack. But unfortunately, we do hit that 32% HP scaling, which in my opinion really sucks if you're trying to use her as a damage dealer. So that's the first 2 stars that I want to talk about. Next up, when fully charged, because she's physical, she will apply the Grievous, which is going to increase damage taken by 20% by enemies for 7 seconds. Moving on from that, 1-star is really nice. Increased damage dealt and all elemental shattering effects on targets within Full Bloom's range by 30%. Now, Full Bloom is her ability on the 45-second cooldown. Really nice, gets that extra shatter, extra damage. Now, this can apply to your allies as well, which is really nice to increase the damage that your team can deal, especially if you're free to play like me and you have whales that can carry you. Then we have the 3-star. Increases shatter by 15% and resets all skill cooldowns upon shattering the target's shield. Can only be triggered once every 30 seconds. Now, if this didn't have once every 30 seconds, she would be the most OP broken character in my opinion, because groups of enemies, you just get a couple of them, shatter shield, reset, shatter shield, reset. It'd be really fun. But 30-second cooldown, not too bad, but honestly, increasing the shatter and getting those cooldowns back. Now, you can really abuse this in a team like what I have. Once I do get to 3 stars, I will demonstrate this, but I use things like King, which has a really high multiplier on a long cooldown skill, and then I also use Samir, who has very similar decent multiplier on a 45-second cooldown, so longer cooldown. Obviously, King is a beast to pair with this, but it's not too bad, especially if you've got longer cooldowns that you can be resetting with this ability. Now, moving on past that, at 5 stars, attacking a Grievous target extends the duration of Grievous by an additional 7 seconds, which is not too bad, especially once we look at something like Claudia coming into the game, who has fast charge and also physical. She can, get fully charged, apply that Grievous, you can discharge into something else, swap into Shiro, use her burst, and then you get that damage extension on the Grievous effect, which is really not too bad. And then at 6 stars, after using Full Bloom, grant 100% crit chance for the next 8 seconds. Now, at the moment in the game, this is amazing because we have very low crit because we don't have great gear. Now, on CN, it becomes a bit obsolete because people get really high crit ratings, but early on, it's not too bad. And we'll have to see where global goes with the scaling of stats and stuff like that as well. We don't know. So, at the moment it's great, could be really bad in the future. Okay, now I want to look at the basics of what we can do. First of all, we'll look at her skill and her burst window. So normally I like to use her when her skill's available. Swap her out, use her skill, use 3 dodge attacks, and away you go. Now with the skill, ideally you want to use it on a Fantasia and have the enemy in the center of it. Now, if you Fantasia before you use it, it means that you're 1 dodge down. So you'll probably get 3 dodge attacks for the total. However, if you use it while not in Fantasia, you can do 3 dodge attacks, do like a normal attack, like the 5 throw, so a tap and hold, and then you can get another dodge attack just before the thing ends, but they won't get the full amount of bounces. So, but the most reliable way is to get a Fantasia, then to pop the ring right in the middle, like, because the ring pops around herself. So you want to be standing on top of the enemy so they're in the middle of the ring, so that the bouncing chakrams have more chance to hit them, is what I found. Now, if you got bigger targets, it doesn't really matter, like bosses and stuff like that. Well, the puppy is coming to attack us. So let's get this Fantasia happening. We didn't actually get it on that. Okay, let's get him to do the thingy bob. Depends on where lag's at, really. Okay, there we go. So now we're going to go, wait a sec. We'll go into that. Now we're going to do dodge attack, dodge attack, dodge attack, and then we're going to do the 5 throw, and then we're going to do one more dodge attack, and you can see that's pretty much what it does. So that was the little burst window that we did on that guy. Now I know it's just some random elite mob, but that sort of shows you the capacity of what she can do in that 8 seconds of her ability in that little burst window. Now, if you get left with her in, like I was saying before, you sort of want to just get right up close to them and then do tap hold, and you'll do the 5 throw. And you can do tap hold, and you can see it actually generates not too bad. Now, I don't know how much charge we had at the start of that, but that was basically from the skill with the bouncing around. Obviously, we've got the 1 proc through the Fantasia, but we generated a fair bit of charge. So, you know, I'm not saying it's crazy charge, but it's not the worst charge you've ever seen from a character when you've got so many hits happening at once. So, you know, that's sort of her kit. Like I said, anything like this, whoops. So if you're close, you want to be spamming, and then obviously you want to proc the Fantasia if you can. But just her standard shattering effects, you can see it's not crazy when she's just in normally. But, you know, it's something if you do get her stuck in. Maybe you're really close to getting fully charged and you want to use a different discharge ability. That's what you will be using. You will be using that skill in itself. And then once again, you can just do this one, drop it. And ideally, you want to get them as close to the middle as you can. And that's pretty much the general playstyle of her. You swap to her ability, you use that, you melt shields, you do massive damage, you buff the damage that you can deal if you have star ups, and then you just swap out of her. So that is the very, very basics. I may do some more team composition stuff, going deeper into the team composition. For instance, what I have with King and Samir, it works really well, especially when you can use something like King's Discharge, swap to her, use her ring, you're buffing the damage that you're dealing, you're also increasing that shatter, guaranteeing that you're going to land a shatter, plus you're getting more charge, which means you can basically, as soon as you shatter, discharge into a Samir. And like I said, I'll go more deep into it, but it's really cool. And especially when you group her burst with another ability that lingers on the field, even Huma, you could kind of do the same, I guess. And you can generate that charge so that she can apply Grievous. Because at the moment, nothing really applies Grievous. No one uses anything that applies Grievous in the game at this stage on Global. So, you know, it's a nice effect to add to your team, along with what she adds with her 1-star ability. Okay, so now I want to look at some of these multipliers versus CN, not just to compare it to CN, but also to show you what the multipliers of her abilities end up being, because when you just read them, they're very low numbers, but because you're having multiple chakram, multiple bounces inside the ring and stuff like that, it actually does increase those numbers. So I've only done 3 abilities here. I just couldn't be bothered writing the others because you don't use them too much. We've gone with Scatter, which is the one where she does, that's the tap and hold where she throws 5. Full Bloom, which is her ability, which puts 5 chakrams in that bounce around. And then Wanting Moon, which is her dodge attack, which will split the chakram into 3 and then continue bouncing around inside that Wanting Moon. So let's take a look at this. So the Scatter, when we compare it to CN version, CN was doing 38.5% versus 43.5%. But then when you consider the fact, and this is for each chakram of the 5 that it throws, but if you're close enough to an enemy, you know, it's a boss, something like that, and you're hitting them with all 5, it does become a bigger difference at 192 versus 217. So 217, not a bad multiplier for the tap and hold button. You will also have the 2 basic attacks that go out and back in on the way as well, but they weren't the key ones I want to look at. I wanted to look at the 5 here. So then we look at Full Bloom, which is her ability where, you know, the ring comes out and it has 5 chakrams in it. They bounce 5 times. Now, I tried looking on slow-mo. It gets too hazy trying to see the bloody chakram bouncing around. Now, I've considered 5 bounces and times it by 5. It could be 6 if the chakram starts and hits an enemy, then bounces, then goes through, and then bounces, then goes. And also, I'm assuming that the 5th bounce, it'll still go through an enemy and then disappear. I'm not sure the 5th bounce stops it. So this could be anywhere from 4 to 6 that we could multiply by for damage dealing capacity. It was just really hard to watch and look. So I've called it 5 in between. So take this with a little grain of salt. It could be either way a little bit. But damage, Full Bloom. Each of these chakram is dealing 21.4 on CN, 24.1 on Global when they deal damage to an enemy. Now, when we talk about the bounces, it's talking about bouncing off the wall. So when we have 5 chakram, we're going to times that by 5, which becomes 120. And once we go and times that by 5 again for hitting an enemy 5 times, it becomes 535 to 602. Now, like I said, keep in mind, whoops, Control Z that. Little enemies and stuff like that, you might not get all the hits. Bosses, you probably end up getting all the hits, which won't be too bad. But when we look at this half effective, that's considering, you know, the enemy was a small enemy and it wasn't in the center. You didn't get max effectiveness out of those chakrams bouncing. And then we can look at like a 301, which is pretty decent. Normally, you should be getting above that. But, you know, even at half effectiveness, you're still getting a 301 multiplier versus a 267. So that is the full bloom. Then we go into the Wanting Moon, which is the dodge attack, which splits into 3. So the first hit, the first hit of it is going to deal 117 on CN versus 132 on global. And then the 3 that it spreads into will each deal 21.4 versus 24.2. So then we jump. Was it 24.2 or did I get that wrong? It might have been 24.1 to match this one. Anyway, take it with a grain of salt. We could be a decimal point out. But then we go on to the 3 hits. So the 3 of them, because it's hitting 3 times, when you add those 3 chakram together, you can just times it by 3, 64 versus 72. Then you consider the 5 bounces. Same thing with these ones. Like I said, this could be 4, it could be 6. Actually, this one could only really be 5 because it's going to bounce unless you have more than one enemy in the ring. But this will be 5 or 4 bounces. So take this one, like I said, with a grain of salt. But that's going to be 321 versus 336. So the subtotal here is these two, your 1 hit plus your extra 3 chakrams that are bouncing around 5 times. That's the difference. So the total damage becomes, for using 1 dodge attack on an enemy that's in the ring, the maximum damage potential you can do is 438.5 on CN or 495.9 on global. So it's not a bad difference. But when we look at this in itself, a 495 multiplier for a dodge attack is pretty decent. And if we get half effectiveness with those bounces, like I said, now it would be higher than this because I've just halved this number, but this number includes the initial hit, which is going to hit anyway and get you full 132. So, you know, take this with a grain of salt. This is like less than half, but you know, still even a 240 multiplier for a dodge attack, this is probably going to average out to normally be around 300 when you're doing it into the full bloom ring. It's not too bad. And when you consider like maximum damage potential, like I showed, where you get an enemy in the middle, you do 3 dodge attacks. Don't even worry about that last 4th one that you can clutch in there. But if you just put out your ring and do 3 dodge attacks, your max potential, let's just call this 500. That's like 1500 plus another 602. So that's like a 2100 damage potential just from doing the ring and 3 dodge attacks in 8 seconds. It's not too bad. But like I said, she is getting buffed from the CN version, which a lot of characters are getting nerfed. So that's something I am impressed about, that they are looking at characters that aren't shining too brightly and giving them little buffs. So let me know what you guys think of Shiro. Like I said, not saying she's god tier, not saying you have to build her, but I am having a lot of fun with her. I really like her playstyle. I think there's a lot of unique stuff you can do, especially once you get to her 3 stars, to do some really nice burst plays. Like I said, she also has some great team support, and she's the only character at the moment that, you know, can really provide a grievous buff to your team's damage. And I mean, no one's using her. So, you know, Wales, I will carry, no, sorry. I will help your damage to help you carry me. That's all I'm saying. But let me know what you guys think. That's everything. I'm fairly passionate about Shiro. That's everything I've found out so far, all my experience. I will update you guys as I give her more stars, as I do more testing, as I find out more information. And once again, I apologize if any of the info in this was wrong. I tried my best to do enough testing to make it all right. But like I said, with those bounces and stuff, it's hard to see. So hopefully, you know, take it with a grain of salt, plus minus a little bit, and you should be fine. Anyway, guys, I'm going to shut up. Thanks for watching. Hope you have an awesome day, and I look forward to seeing the next one. Cheers.